This is Ryan Carter speaking. If this signal is reaching anyone, anywhere, I don't know how clear it sounds. The meter jumps when the clouds pass over the antenna. I'm broadcasting on 87.3 FM. That number still feels strange to say out loud, like the world still runs on numbers and clocks. It's night again, I think. It's hard to tell now. The temperature in this room is cold, maybe 10 degrees Celsius, maybe less. The air smells like dust, oil, and the filters I keep washing over and over. Outside, the sky is moving. Not clouds, not weather. It's them. It's always them. If this signal's reaching you, drop the first word you hear me say. Prove you're tuned in. There is no real daylight anymore. Even when the sun is up, it looks like someone put a dirty blanket over the world. Sometimes the sky turns a deep brown, sometimes black, sometimes a thick gray that pulses and shifts like it's breathing. You can feel it more than see it. The light never lands properly on the ground. Shadows don't behave the way they used to. Everything looks flat and sick. I haven't seen a clear blue sky in months. I don't remember the last time I felt sunlight on my skin without a mask between us. I'm inside an old traffic control building on the edge of what used to be the city. I won't say the city name anymore. Names don't mean much now. The windows are sealed with plastic, tape, resin, anything I could melt and press into the cracks. The radio is running on a mix of old truck batteries and a hand-crank generator I scavenged from a boat. I tried solar panels at first. They worked for about 3 days. Then the panels disappeared under layers of insects. Not dead ones, living ones. Crawling, nesting, blocking every cell. I scraped them clean until my arms shook, and within an hour they were black again. Fuel engines don't last. The filters clog fast. You can hear it happen. The engine coughs, then chokes, then dies. Same sound cars made on the highways when this really started. Same sound planes made before they fell. I'm talking into this microphone because staying silent feels worse. Because if no one speaks anymore, then we're already gone. Because maybe someone underground, or high up, or sealed better than me, might hear a human voice and remember they're not alone. It didn't start like this. That's the part that hurts the most. It didn't fall from the sky all at once. It crept in slowly, quietly, like something testing us to see how much we would ignore. At first, it was just reports. Mosquito season lasting longer than normal. Flies showing up in winter. People complaining that bug spray didn't work the way it used to. Scientists went on screens and said insects adapt fast. They always have. They talked about warmer temperatures, standing water, urban heat zones, climate graphs, safe words. Nobody panicked. Then came the first strange stories. Mosquitoes biting through thicker clothing, flies surviving chemical fogging, whole swarms hovering in one place for hours, not moving on, not dying off. Farmers started losing livestock. Animals refused to go outside. Birds vanished first. That should have scared us more than it did. Hospitals noticed the breathing cases before anyone else connected it. People coming in coughing, throat swollen, lungs irritated, no infection found. Kids especially. Old people. Doctors said allergies, air quality, something seasonal. They handed out masks and inhalers and sent people home. Flights were delayed next. Engines overheating on the runway. Maintenance crews pulling filters packed so full of insects it looked like black felt. They cleaned them, flew again, and the same thing happened. A few small planes went down in rural areas. Mechanical failure, they said. Pilot error. always a reason that made it smaller than it was. I remember the first day I noticed the sound, the constant sound, a low buzzing that never fully stopped. At first, I thought it was power lines. Then I realized it was coming from above, from everywhere, even inside, through the walls, through the vents. It wasn't loud. It was worse than loud. It was steady, like the world had developed tinnitus. Governments tried to control the message. They always do. Press releases said there was no danger to the general population. Scientists argued on TV about mutation rates and breeding cycles. Someone mentioned bioengineering once, a lab leak tied to mosquito population control experiments. That story vanished in a day. Nobody followed up. Then one afternoon, the sky dimmed. Not like a storm, not like clouds rolling in. It was fast. 1 minute the sun was weak but visible. The next minute it was gone, swallowed by motion. People went outside and looked up. I did too. That was a mistake. The air felt thicker, harder to breathe. The sky wasn't still. It was alive. Billions of bodies moving together, changing shape, folding over itself. That day lasted 6 hours. 6 hours without real light. Phones stopped working around hour 4. Cell towers overheated. Power grids tripped. Traffic lights went dark. People abandoned cars in intersections and stood in the streets staring upward with their mouths open. When the light came back, it didn't feel like relief. It felt like a warning. 2 days later, it happened again. This time for 12 hours, then a full day, then longer. Each time, more insects stayed behind when the sky cleared, coating buildings, trees, skin. People started sealing windows, taping doors, wearing masks everywhere. Stores sold out of plastic sheets in hours. Planes stopped flying completely after the third crash. One went down near the coast. The footage leaked before it was scrubbed. Engines choked black. Pilot coughing on the audio. Then nothing. Power plants failed next. Intake vents clogged. Cooling systems jammed. Solar became useless. Wind turbines jammed with bodies until they caught fire or seized. Cities started rationing electricity, then losing it altogether. Crops died quietly. No sun. Leaves eaten down to stems. Greenhouses turned into traps. Insects breeding inside them until nothing grew anymore. Livestock suffocated in barns when the vents failed. The smell carried for days. That's when panic finally arrived. Not screaming panic. The quiet kind. The kind where people stop talking to strangers. The kind where shelves empty and nobody looks anyone else in the eye. I saw my first person die from it on the street near my apartment. A man tried to run through a swarm without sealing his face properly. He made it maybe 10 meters. He dropped, clawing at his mouth. I didn't help him. I still see his hands. I still hear the sound he made when he tried to breathe. Hospitals collapsed fast. Masks failed. Filters clogged. Doctors worked until they couldn't stand. Hallways filled with people sitting on the floor, leaning against walls, gasping. Insects crawled into vents, lights, machines. Babies first. Old people. Anyone with weak lungs. Then the rest. Cars became useless. Engines died within minutes of driving during heavy movement. Highways turned into parking lots of abandoned metal. Some people tried bikes, some tried walking. Many didn't come back. Entire neighborhoods went quiet. Not peaceful quiet. Dead quiet. No dogs, no voices. Just the sky moving. Governments declared emergency laws. Curfews. Martial control. Soldiers couldn't see through the swarms. Drones fell out of the air. Guns jammed. Vehicles stalled. Orders stopped reaching units. Then the broadcasts stopped altogether. People went underground, subway tunnels, basements, mines, old bunkers, anywhere with sealed air. Some places held, some didn't. Insects find cracks. They always do. Rules formed quickly. Not official rules. Survival rules. Never open a door during heavy movement. Never use fire unless you want to drown in wings. Never drive unless you want to die. Burn bodies fast or the swarms come thicker. Children never go outside. Ever. I lost my sister on day 17. She thought she could make it to a shelter 2 blocks away. Her mask seal broke. I didn't even see her body. I found the mask later. I live alone now. I clean vents every 4 hours. I sleep in short bursts. I count my breaths when the buzzing gets too loud. I talk into this microphone because if I stop, I'm afraid I'll forget how words work. If you're listening, stay sealed. Stay low. Stay quiet when the sky thickens. Cold slows them. Height helps sometimes. Chemicals work, but not for long. I don't know how many of us are left. Maybe millions, maybe thousands, maybe less. The earth looks wrong now. Forests blackened and stripped. Oceans covered in moving shadows. Cities wrapped in living clouds. Sometimes, late at night, the buzzing thins. Just a little. Enough that I can imagine blue above it. Enough to keep talking. If this signal reaches you, you're not alone yet. I'll keep speaking as long as the batteries hold. I stopped cranking for a while to save my arms. The batteries are holding, but weaker than yesterday. Everything weakens now. The walls, the seals, the people. The insects don't seem to weaken at all. The buzzing outside hasn't stopped for hours. It's thick enough that the building vibrates a little, like something huge is brushing past it again and again. I want to keep going back to the beginning, because that's where it still feels unreal. Like if I say it clearly enough, it might undo itself. After the sky first went black for days at a time, people still tried to live normal lives. That's the strangest thing about humans. We cling to habits even while the world is breaking. Offices stayed open with taped windows. Kids tried to go to school in masks. News anchors kept smiling, while the studio lights dimmed and the camera lenses filled with tiny dark shapes crawling over the glass. The insects changed fast. That's when the scientists finally stopped sounding calm. Mosquitoes breeding without water. Flies laying eggs inside filters, insulation, lungs. Bodies tougher than before, shells harder to crush. Cold didn't kill them anymore. Heat didn't either. Chemicals slowed them for hours, sometimes minutes. Then they adapted again. You could spray an entire street, and by the next day the swarms would be thicker, like they had learned. There were theories everywhere once the networks collapsed into local signals. Climate collapse mixed with chemical runoff. Military biocontrol programs meant to kill pests, turning into something else. Genetic edits meant to stop disease backfiring. Some people said it was natural, just evolution pushed too far by us. Others said it wasn't from here at all. I don't know what to believe. I only know what I saw. I saw the sky disappear completely for the first time on what should have been a clear morning. No clouds on the weather maps. No storm warnings. Just black, rolling motion from horizon to horizon. The temperature dropped fast. Plants closed their leaves like it was night, then never opened them again. Streetlights came on at noon and stayed on until the power died. That was the day the planes started falling out of the sky for real. Not just one or two, dozens. Engines starved of air, packed solid. I watched one trail smoke and vanish behind the buildings. There was no explosion sound, just silence after, like the city itself was holding its breath. Power stations failed one by one, the big ones first, then the backups. When the grid went, it never came back. You don't realize how much of the world depends on electricity until it's gone and can't be repaired. Water pumps stopped. Sewage backed up. Elevators froze with people inside. Fire alarms screamed until their batteries died. Food disappeared next. Not slowly. Overnight. Trucks couldn't move. Warehouses filled with insects and heat and rot. People tried to grow food indoors, under lamps, in sealed rooms. The insects found their way in anyway. They always do. They eat leaves, roots, seeds, anything soft enough, anything alive. I walked through the city during one of the thinner swarm periods, wrapped head to toe, filters taped tight. I shouldn't have gone. I needed supplies. I needed to feel like I was still part of something. Cars were everywhere, doors open, keys still in ignitions. Some had people inside, slumped forward, windows closed, engines dead. Others were empty, like everyone had just stepped out at once and never come back. Animals were gone. No birds, no cats, no dogs, just insects and silence. Even the rats vanished after a while. Nothing could breathe long enough. Hospitals turned into tombs. I went into one, looking for masks and filters. The lights were off. Beds lined the halls, people where they fell, some wrapped in sheets, some not. Insects nested inside equipment, IV lines, lungs. I took what I could and left fast. I still feel like they followed me home. Emergency services tried to keep going longer than anyone else. Firefighters sealed themselves in stations. Paramedics ran calls until their vehicles died. Police set up checkpoints that no one could see through. Martial law was declared on paper, but paper doesn't stop insects. Orders don't matter when the sky itself is hostile. People fled downward. That was the instinct. Underground feels safer. Basements, subway tunnels, old storm drains, caves outside the city. Some groups survived for a while. Others ran out of air. Filters clogged. Panic did the rest. There were stories of entire shelters going silent overnight. Rules spread by word, scribbled notes, fading radio signals like this one. Never go outside without a full seal. Never light a fire. Heat draws them in waves. Never open a door during heavy movement. Wait, count, listen. Never drive unless you want to choke an engine and yourself at the same time. Burn bodies fast. The dead draw swarms. Children stay inside, always. No exceptions. Those rules kept some people alive. They broke others. Living like that changes you. You start to see doors as threats. Air as something borrowed. Silence as safety. Hope as dangerous. I lost more than my sister. Friends, neighbors. A man I traded filters with for weeks. One day, his signal stopped answering mine. I never went to check. I still don't know if that makes me smart or a coward. I chose this building because it was already meant to be sealed. Thick walls, few windows, old radio equipment that didn't rely on satellites. I patch it together with wire and tape and whatever still works. I clean the vents until my fingers bleed. I sleep with my mask on because waking up choking is worse. I talk because someone might be listening. Because maybe somewhere above the clouds, or deep under the ground, someone needs to hear another human voice to stay sane. Because if we stop telling our story, then it ends even if our bodies don't yet. The world now is layers of motion. Insect clouds over everything, oceans darkened by them, forests stripped and buzzing, cities wrapped tight like wounds that never heal. The sun is still there, I think. I haven't seen it in so long I'm not sure anymore. Sometimes the swarms thin near high places. Old towers, mountains, cold helps, chemicals help for a while. There are rumors of sealed stations in the far north, high-altitude shelters where the air is thinner and the insects struggle. I don't know if they're real. Rumors are all we have left. If you're listening, clean your filters. Check your seals. Share what you have if you can. Be careful who you trust. Fear makes people dangerous. I'll keep talking, as long as there's power, as long as there's air, as long as the sky keeps moving and I'm still under it. My shoulders feel like they're filled with sand. I don't know if it's age, stress, or the air slowly poisoning me even through the filters. Maybe all of it. The buzzing outside is lighter right now, not gone, never gone, but thinner. That usually means a larger mass is passing somewhere else. You learn to read the sound the way sailors used to read waves. I want to talk about what it did to people's minds, because the bodies weren't the only thing that failed. At first, fear was sharp and loud. People cried, screamed, prayed in public. Then fear got quiet. It settled in like a sickness that never leaves. People stopped opening doors even for voices they recognized. They stopped answering signals. They stopped helping unless it was someone they loved, and sometimes not even then. Hope became something you had to ration, like food or clean air. Living without real daylight breaks something inside you. Weeks go by where the world looks like late evening at best. Your sleep gets confused. You wake up exhausted and go to sleep afraid. Kids stopped growing right. People stopped talking properly. I heard grown adults whispering to themselves like children. I caught myself doing it too. Saying my own name out loud just to remember it belonged to me. People got paranoid about air, about vents, about cracks in walls. Every sound felt like insects finding a way in. People stuffed cloth, foam, paper, anything into gaps until rooms became smaller and smaller. Some sealed themselves in so tight they ran out of oxygen. Others opened doors too fast and never got a second breath. There were moments of kindness, though. I don't want to forget those. Neighbors sharing masks through sealed doors. Strangers holding plastic sheets in place while someone taped from the inside. A woman I never learned the name of gave me her last filter because mine was damaged. She smiled when she did it. I don't know if she survived. I carry that smile with me more than the screams. After months without proper sun, people stopped believing the world could go back. That was when suicides increased. Quiet ones. People walking into the swarms without sealing up. People turning off their own air. Some left notes. Most didn't. I don't judge them. I think some people just got tired of fighting something that never sleeps. The insects kept changing. Bigger bodies mixed with smaller ones. Different sounds layered together. Some bit harder. Some didn't bite at all but clogged faster, thicker, like living smoke. The sky never stopped moving. Even when it looked still, it wasn't. You could feel it if you watched long enough, like watching a muscle under skin. I started broadcasting after I realized how dangerous silence was. I found the old equipment in this building by accident while scavenging. The antenna was damaged but usable. The transmitter barely worked. I fixed it with parts from cars and broken radios. The first time I spoke into the mic, my voice shook so bad I had to stop and breathe. Hearing myself come back through the static felt unreal, like proof that I still existed. At first, I got responses, short signals, bursts of static with words inside. Someone in a tunnel system, someone on a hill, someone claiming to be near snow. Over time, those signals faded, one by one. Either their power died or they did. I still listen between broadcasts. Mostly I hear nothing now. Sometimes I hear something that sounds like movement, but I can't tell if it's real or my brain filling the silence. I keep this place clean like it's a ritual. Sweep, wipe, scrape vents, check seals, over and over. It gives my hands something to do so my thoughts don't spiral. I eat carefully. I drink slowly. I track my supplies, even though the numbers scare me. Running out of food is bad. Running out of filters is death. I think about my sister a lot at night. About the way she laughed at how serious I always was. About how she said bugs never scared her. I wonder if she was afraid at the end, or if it was too fast to feel anything. Survivor's guilt doesn't feel like guilt the way people describe it. It feels like weight. Like every breath costs something extra. The world now feels smaller, closed in. The horizon doesn't mean distance anymore. It just means more insects. Oceans used to feel endless. Now they're just dark surfaces covered in moving life. Forests don't look green from above anymore. They look eaten. Cities are shapes under clouds that never clear. There are still rumors. There are always rumors. People say extreme cold slows them enough to breathe easier. That high altitude helps. That certain chemicals confuse them. That the insects are starting to starve themselves. That there are too many of them to survive. I don't know if any of it is true. Hope is dangerous, but it's also the only reason I turn the crank again. If you're hearing this, and you're still alive, you matter. Even if the world forgot your name. Even if no one answers when you speak. Being alive right now is an act of defiance. I'll keep this frequency open as long as I can. I'll keep talking until the air runs out or the power does. If this ends suddenly, know that I didn't stop because I wanted to. I stopped because the world finally took everything it could. The signal is weaker tonight. I had to move the antenna again because the buildup on the roof got too heavy. I didn't go all the way out. I cracked the hatch just enough to reach the lever with a hooked pole. Even that was risky. A few of them got inside. You feel it instantly when even one slips through. The air changes. I sealed it fast and spent an hour chasing the sound, crushing what I could, waiting for my breathing to calm down. I'm still shaking a little. That doesn't really go away anymore. I want to talk about the time after everything officially collapsed, when there were no more announcements, no more emergency tones, no more authority telling people what to do. That was when people had to decide who they really were. Some became careful. Some became cruel. Some just froze and waited to die. Groups formed at first. Small ones. Families, neighbors, co-workers who happened to be together when the world shut down. They tried to share resources. They tried schedules for air use, for cleaning, for rest. That worked for a while. Then someone would panic, or someone would get sick, or someone would break a rule because they were tired or angry or desperate. One mistake was enough. I watched a group try to clear a street together so they could move supplies. They wore seals and masks and moved slowly, communicating with hand signs. The swarm thickened suddenly. Someone tripped. Another person tried to help them up. Their seals brushed. That was it. Within minutes, the whole group was coughing, clawing at their faces, scattering in different directions. Coordination died the moment fear took over. After that, people stopped trusting groups. Being alone was safer in some ways. Fewer chances for mistakes, fewer chances for someone else's fear to kill you. Isolation became normal. Doors stayed shut even when voices begged on the other side. I ignored knocks too. I still hear them sometimes when I try to sleep. I don't know if those sounds were real or if my mind made them to punish me. Fires became a nightmare. Not because of heat, but because no one could fight them. One small blaze could take out entire blocks. Smoke mixed with insects. People trapped inside sealed rooms ran out of air faster. I saw buildings burn with no sirens, no response, just quiet flames behind black skies. At night, the glow was the only light left in the city. During the day, you couldn't tell if it was day or night at all. Children suffered the most. They couldn't understand why they couldn't go outside, why the windows were always covered, why the sky sounded angry. Some stopped talking, some screamed constantly, some got sick and never recovered. Parents did everything they could, then did things they never thought they would just to keep their kids breathing one more day. I saw parents give their children the last working masks and step into the swarms themselves. That kind of thing stays with you. I think that's when I decided I had to leave my apartment. Too many people. Too many shared vents. Too many ways for one mistake to kill everyone. I packed what I could carry and moved during a thinner swarm period, counting my steps, keeping my head down. That walk felt longer than any trip I'd ever taken. Every breath felt like it might be my last. This building wasn't safe at first. Nothing was. I made it safe one layer at a time. Seal, test, wait, seal again. I learned fast. Fear is a good teacher when there's no second chance. I still mark time, even though it barely makes sense anymore. I scratch lines into the wall when I think a day has passed. Sometimes I lose count when the sky stays dark for too long. Weeks blend together. Months feel like one long, heavy moment. My body knows time is passing even if my eyes don't. There are nights when the buzzing drops low enough that I can hear other sounds again. Wind, maybe. Metal creaking. Once, I thought I heard water moving somewhere far away. I cried when that happened. I didn't even know why at first. I think I just missed normal sounds. Sounds that weren't alive and hunting. I've noticed something else lately. The swarms aren't as even as they used to be. There are gaps now. Not clearings, not safe, but thinner patches that linger longer than before. Sometimes the buzzing rises into a frantic pitch, like something is wrong. I don't know if that's hope or just another phase before things get worse. I've also seen more dead insects lately. Not sprayed, not burned, just dead. Piled up in corners, in streets, on rooftops. Too many of them in one place, maybe. Even something this unstoppable might have limits. I don't let myself believe too hard, but I notice. If you're still listening, pay attention to patterns. The sky tells stories if you watch long enough. Where it thickens, where it thins, where it hesitates. Survival now is about patience more than strength. I don't know how this ends. I don't know if humanity fades out quietly or claws its way into some new shape underground. I only know that right now, this voice is proof that at least one person is still here, still thinking, still hoping just enough to keep breathing. I don't know what time it is anymore. My watch stopped weeks ago when moisture got inside it, and I stopped trying to fix it. Time doesn't move the way it used to. It stretches and collapses depending on how loud the sky is. Right now, it's loud again. Not the thick roar of a full blackout swarm, but a constant pressure, like standing next to a highway that never clears. I've started to realize that the insects didn't just take the sky, they took direction. Before all this, you could look up and know where you were. Sunrise, sunset, north, south. Now everything above us is motion without meaning. You walk and don't know if you're going in circles. You climb stairs and feel like you're sinking. I've seen people lose their sense of space completely. They'd open a door thinking it led deeper underground and step straight into open air. The fear of air itself is something I don't think humans were meant to live with. Air was supposed to be free, automatic. Now, every breath is counted, filtered, earned. I've seen people argue over vents, over whose room got more flow, over who deserved the last clean filter. Those arguments ended badly most of the time. Not because people were evil, but because panic strips away patience. I tried keeping a journal at first, writing things down, names, dates, what I saw. I stopped when the pages started filling with the same words over and over. Dark, buzzing, gone. There's only so many ways to describe the end of the world before language starts to break too. One thing I haven't talked about yet is the smell. People don't mention it enough. The world smells wrong now. Sweet and rotten at the same time. Insects crushed underfoot. Buildings full of decay. Burned plastic. Old smoke that never clears because there's no wind strong enough to push it away. Even sealed inside, the smell finds ways in. It gets into your clothes, your hair, your thoughts. There was a point when the broadcasts from governments and scientists came back briefly. Emergency towers running on isolated power, short messages telling people to stay indoors, to seal air, to conserve energy. They sounded tired. You could hear it in their voices. They didn't have answers anymore, just instructions to delay the inevitable. Those broadcasts stopped after a few days. Either the towers fell or the people speaking did. After that, smaller signals filled the air. People like me, survivors trying to warn, teach, or just talk. The radio spectrum turned into a scattered collection of lonely voices, some angry, some calm, some clearly not stable anymore. Over time, those voices disappeared too, one by one, sometimes in the middle of a sentence. I still remember one man who used to broadcast every evening from somewhere underground. He talked about pressure doors and old subway systems. He sounded confident, organized. Then one night, his voice changed. He said their filters were clogging faster than they could clean them. He said the insects were smaller now, getting through mesh that used to stop them. He signed off calmly. He never came back on the air. That's another thing people don't understand until it's too late. The insects don't need to break your defenses all at once. They just need time. They find weaknesses. They adapt. Every wall fails eventually if something presses against it long enough. I've started rationing my broadcasts. Not because I don't want to talk, but because power is harder to replace now. The crank sticks. The batteries don't hold as much charge. I've had to choose between light and radio sometimes. When that happens, I choose the radio. Darkness is easier to survive than silence. I dream sometimes that the sky clears. In the dream, it doesn't happen fast. The buzzing just thins. The light gets stronger. Shadows sharpen. I wake up reaching for my mask, heart racing, already knowing it wasn't real. Waking up is worse than the dream ending. You feel tricked by your own mind. I've also had dreams where the insects are gone, but no one comes back out. Cities stay empty. Roads stay quiet. Humanity survives, but forgets how to live in the open. I don't know which future scares me more. There are signs the insects are struggling in some places. I've seen entire swarms collapse suddenly, like something shut them off. The ground covered in bodies so thick you can't see the pavement underneath. That should feel like victory. Instead, it feels like a warning. Because something that grows this fast and dies this fast, doesn't disappear gently. If you're still out there, listening, remember this. Don't trust quiet too quickly. Silence can mean danger just as much as noise. Check your seals even when the sky seems calm, especially then. I don't know how much longer I can keep this up. Not because I want to stop, but because the world is tightening around what little space we have left. Still, as long as I can breathe and turn this machine, I'll keep talking. I almost didn't turn the radio on this time. Not because I didn't want to speak, but because my hands wouldn't stop shaking for a while. I had a close call earlier. One of the inner filters tore when I was cleaning it. Just a small rip, barely visible, but enough. The air changed instantly. My chest tightened, throat burned. I sealed it fast with tape and resin and held my breath longer than I thought I could. When I finally inhaled again, I sat on the floor for a long time and didn't move. It scares me how close the end can be now. No drama, no warning, just one small failure. I keep thinking about how fast civilization really fell. We like to believe it's strong, built on systems and laws and technology. But it turned out most of it was held together by clean air and clear skies. Once those were gone, everything else followed. Money became meaningless within days. Borders vanished. Laws meant nothing when no one could enforce them. The world didn't end in fire or explosions. It ended in breathing problems. I remember the last time I saw a crowd. Not a panicked one, not people running. A real crowd. It was early on, during one of the first long blackouts. People gathered in an open square because someone said the swarms were thinner there. Hundreds of them, all masked, standing close together because being alone felt worse. For a moment, it looked almost normal, like a strange festival under a dark sky. Then the movement above shifted. You could feel it before you saw it. The sound dropped low, then surged. People started shouting. Some pushed. Some froze. When it was over, the square was empty. I never went back. I don't talk much about my parents. They lived far away in a smaller town. We lost contact early. I like to tell myself they went quickly, that they didn't suffer long. I don't know if that's true. Not knowing is its own kind of pain, one that never settles into memory. It just hangs there, unfinished. The loneliness is worse than the fear most days. Fear keeps you alert. Loneliness eats at you slowly. There are times when I catch myself speaking to the walls, answering questions that aren't being asked. I stop when I realize what I'm doing, but the urge never goes away. Humans weren't meant to be this isolated for this long. Even now, speaking into this microphone, I'm not sure if anyone is hearing me. I choose to believe someone is, because the alternative feels like being buried alive. I've noticed more structural damage around the city lately. Buildings collapsing not from bombs or earthquakes, but from neglect. Metal rusting, concrete cracking, water damage from broken pipes, insects nesting in everything, adding weight, moisture, decay. The city is folding in on itself slowly, quietly. Nature isn't reclaiming it in a healthy way. It's rotting it. I ventured out again 2 days ago during a thinner period. I needed medical supplies. My suit held, barely. I moved fast, stayed low. I saw something I hadn't seen in a long time. A tree, still standing, still alive. Its leaves were chewed down to lace, but green. It shouldn't have made me emotional, but it did. I stood there longer than I should have, just looking at something that hadn't completely given up yet. Then the sound changed, and I ran. I've been thinking a lot about extinction, not as a big dramatic moment, But as a process, species don't usually vanish all at once. They thin out, they fragment, they survive in pockets until they don't. Humanity feels like that now. Small sealed dots across a hostile planet, slowly blinking out. We might already be past the point where coming back is possible. Even if the insects died tomorrow, would we still remember how to live together? There are nights when I imagine future beings finding this place, finding the radio, hearing recordings of my voice and wondering what happened to us. I hope if that happens, they understand we tried. We adapted as long as we could. We just weren't fast enough. The insects are quieter right now. That doesn't mean safer. I've learned that quiet often comes before a shift. Still, I'm tired. Bone tired. Not just from lack of sleep, but from carrying this awareness every second. Knowing that survival depends on constant attention. One mistake, one moment of rest, and it's over. If you're listening, and you're still fighting, I'm proud of you. Even if no one else ever says that. Staying alive right now takes courage, even if it doesn't feel heroic. Even if it feels small and scared and lonely. I don't know how many more parts I have left in me, but I'll keep going as long as the power turns and the air lets me. Because as long as one human voice is still telling this story, it isn't finished yet. The signal light is dimmer than it was yesterday. I had to choose between charging the batteries or running the air scrubber at full speed. I chose air. I always choose air. The radio gets what's left. The sky outside has been in constant motion for what feels like days. Not thick enough to fully black out everything. Not thin enough to forget it's there. Just endless movement. Like the world is underwater, and we're watching something huge swim past the surface over and over again. I used to think the worst part would be the deaths. I was wrong. The worst part is watching the meaning drain out of things. Words like future, plan, next year. They don't fit anymore. You try to use them, and they feel fake in your mouth, like you're pretending. People stopped thinking in years, then months, then weeks. Now it's hours. Can I last the next hour? Can I clean the vents one more time? Can I sleep for 10 minutes without waking up choking? I want to talk about the last real attempt humanity made to fight back, because there was one. It just didn't last. After the global networks went dark, a coalition formed quietly. Scientists, engineers, military remnants, anyone who still had access to labs or data. They worked underground, sealed facilities, old missile silos, research bunkers. The idea was simple: overwhelm adaptation. Hit the insects with rotating chemical attacks faster than they could adjust. Freeze zones, burn zones, poison zones, cycle everything. For a few weeks, it worked in small areas, entire regions where the sky thinned. Sunlight touched the ground again. Crops were planted fast. People celebrated too early. That's always how it goes. The insects didn't just adapt, they fragmented. Different strains, different behaviors. Some ignored heat, some ignored cold. Some stopped responding to chemicals entirely. And when the counterattack failed, the backlash was worse than before. Swarms thicker than anything we'd seen rolled across those cleared zones like punishment. Those facilities went silent one by one. I know this because I heard them die on the radio. A woman broadcasting from a research station somewhere inland described the air turning grainy. That's the word she used. Grainy. Like breathing sand. She kept talking as long as she could, voice cracking, coughing between words. She said they were sealing the inner rooms. Then the signal cut out mid-sentence. No dramatic ending. just gone. After that, no one talked about fighting anymore. Only surviving. I've accepted something recently that I resisted for a long time. This world doesn't belong to us anymore. We're not the main species now. We're something hiding in the cracks, trying not to be noticed. That realization changes how you think. You stop imagining rebuilding cities. You start imagining smaller things. One sealed room that holds, one child that survives, one place where the sky doesn't move so much. I've changed my routine. I sleep during the heaviest swarm hours now, when the sound is so constant it almost becomes white noise. I work during the thinner periods. I've learned the patterns, not perfectly, but enough. The insects move like weather systems now. Massive, slow, predictable if you watch long enough. I've also learned that the insects are eating each other. I didn't want to believe it at first. It sounded like wishful thinking, but I've seen it. Different swarms colliding, movement turning chaotic, the buzzing rising into something sharp and angry. Afterward, the ground covered in bodies, thicker than ever before. Too many mouths. Not enough space. Overpopulation might be their weakness. Not because we caused it, but because nothing can grow forever. Even something this aggressive hits limits eventually. That doesn't mean we win. It just means the world changes again. I went to the roof yesterday during a rare lull, full seal, tethered, slow movements. I needed to clear the antenna again. From up there, I could see farther than usual. The city looked like it was drowning under a living blanket. Buildings half buried in motion. Streets erased. The horizon gone. But I also saw light. Real light. A thin band near the edge of the sky, barely visible, like the sun was trying to break through and failing. I stood there longer than I should have. I didn't care. I needed to know it was still real. When I came back down, my oxygen gauge was lower than expected. I sat against the wall and laughed for a few seconds, then stopped because laughing wastes air. I think about children a lot now, about what it would mean for one to grow up in this world. No open sky, no wind on bare skin, no running, just filters, rules, sealed rooms. I don't know if that counts as living, but maybe survival is enough for now. If there are communities left, they're deep underground or high above the clouds. Old mines, mountain stations, places where cold or thin air gives them a chance. I don't know how many. I don't know if they're still human in the way we remember. Long isolation changes people. But if anyone deserves to inherit what's left, it's them. I've started preparing for the possibility that this building won't hold forever. No structure does. I've mapped an underground route through service tunnels and drainage shafts. It's risky. But staying is risky too. Everything now is choosing how you might die and trying to push it further away. The radio has become heavier lately. Not physically, emotionally. Every broadcast feels like it could be the last one. I don't say goodbye anymore because that feels final. I just keep talking and hope the next time comes. If you're still listening and you're tired, that's okay. You're allowed to be tired. Just don't give up quietly. Make the world work for your life, even if only for one more day. I had to stop mid-sentence last time because the power dipped hard. The lights went out for a full minute. A real minute. Not the kind that stretches. I sat in the dark with my mask on, listening to the sky scrape across the building, waiting to see if the radio would come back. It did. That feels like luck now, not reliability. Something is changing out there. I don't say that lightly. I've been wrong before. Everyone has. But this feels different. The swarms are still massive, still deadly, but they don't move the same way they used to. Before, they flowed like one body, smooth, controlled. Now there are breaks, turbulence, parts of the sky where movement stutters like a muscle cramping. The buzzing rises and falls in uneven waves. Sometimes it spikes into chaos for a few minutes, then drops suddenly, leaving a silence so sharp it makes my ears ring. I think they're starving. There are simply too many of them. They ate everything they could reach: crops, forests, animals, each other. Even insects need balance, and this world lost its balance long ago. I've seen entire swarms fall out of the air at once, like rain made of bodies. When that happens, the ground becomes black and slick. The smell is unbearable. But above that mess, the sky sometimes thins enough that you can almost see depth again. Almost. I tested something 2 days ago. I waited until one of the quieter periods and cracked a secondary vent, just a fraction, with a chemical cloth layered behind it. The air that came through was thinner. Still dangerous, still wrong, but not as instantly choking as before. That would have been impossible a month ago. I sealed it immediately and sat shaking, but I wrote it down. I don't write much anymore, but that felt important. Hope is still dangerous. I remind myself of that constantly, but ignoring evidence is dangerous too. I've been thinking about the idea of extinction again, but differently this time. Maybe humanity doesn't disappear completely. Maybe it just shrinks into something smaller and quieter. A species that lives underground, in cold places, in sealed towers. A species that fears the open sky the way animals fear fire. That wouldn't be the world we built, but it would still be life. The thought scares me less than it used to. I tried moving through the lower tunnels yesterday. Not far. Just enough to confirm they're still clear. I moved slowly, checking airflow, watching for buildup. Insects don't like enclosed spaces without heat or light, but they will force their way in if given enough time. These tunnels are temporary safety at best. Still, it's something. I found signs of other people. Old signs, but real ones. Chalk marks, numbers scratched into metal. A sealed door reinforced from the inside. I didn't knock. I didn't call out. That rule hasn't changed. But knowing someone else passed through there at some point kept me awake all night. In a good way and a bad way. The loneliness is shifting too. It's still there, but it's duller. Like an ache you've had so long it becomes part of your body. What hurts more now is memory. Little things. The way rain used to sound. The smell of clean clothes dried outside. The feeling of looking up and seeing nothing threatening you. I wonder what the sky looks like from space right now. If it's just a dark smear across the planet. If satellites are still up there, dead and blind, drifting over a world they can't recognize anymore. I've made a decision. Not a dramatic one. Just a necessary one. I can't stay here forever. This building has held longer than most, but the stress is visible now. Micro cracks, warping seals, filters clog faster every week. Staying here until it fails would be waiting to die. Moving is dangerous, but staying is slow death. There's a route north through the tunnels that connects to an old cold storage facility built into bedrock. Thick walls, minimal vents, designed to stay sealed and cold for long periods. If anything has a chance of lasting, it's that. I don't know if it's empty. I don't know if it's safe. I only know it exists. I've started packing in stages, only essentials, filters, tools, radio components I can carry. I'll leave most of this equipment behind. That hurts more than I expected. This room has been my entire world for so long. But the radio isn't the building. It's the voice. If I make it to the facility, I'll try to broadcast again. Different antenna, different signal path, same frequency if I can manage it. If I don't make it, then this might already be my last clear transmission. I want to say something important before that happens. If you're listening to this weeks or months from now and you're still alive, don't wait for the old world to come back. It won't. Don't waste energy hoping for blue skies and normal days. Build something smaller, something that fits the world as it is now. Survival isn't failure. Adaptation isn't surrender. We were never meant to rule forever. We were meant to live as long as we could. The insects may die back. They may thin out. They may even collapse completely someday. But the damage is already done. Even if the sky clears, the world underneath it is changed beyond recognition. That doesn't mean it isn't worth living in. It just means it won't forgive us quickly. I'm scared. I won't pretend I'm not. Moving means exposure. It means risk. It means trusting my body and my planning more than luck. But fear alone can't be the reason to stay frozen. If this signal goes quiet after this, don't assume it means the end. Sometimes silence just means someone is moving. Preparing to leave shelter under a sky that still moves, but not quite as strong as it used to. If the world is giving us even the smallest opening, I'm going to try to walk through it. If you're hearing this, then the radio survived the move. I don't know how clean the signal is. I had to rebuild the antenna twice, and the casing is cracked. I'm still on 87.3 FM. I kept the number on purpose. Changing it felt like losing myself. I'm inside the cold storage facility now, deep enough that the sky noise is a memory instead of a pressure. The walls are thick concrete and stone. The temperature stays low without much effort, and that matters more than anything else. Cold slows them. Not enough to make it safe, but enough to make breathing possible. For now. The move nearly killed me. I waited for one of the longest thinning periods I've seen. Packed light, sealed tight. I moved through the tunnels, then surfaced only when I had to. Even then, I kept my head down and my breaths shallow. The sky above was still alive, still wrong, but thinner. Patchy, like something burned through parts of it. Halfway here, the sound changed fast, too fast. A surge rolled in from the west, heavy and loud. I didn't run. Running wastes air. I dropped into a maintenance pit and sealed myself in with a panel and resin. I lay there in the dark, barely breathing, listening to the world move over me. That's when I realized something important. The insects don't own the sky the way they used to. They still dominate it. They still kill, but they're not endless anymore. The sound rose, peaked, then broke apart. Not thinned, broke, like a wave hitting rocks instead of open shore. When I crawled out hours later, the ground was covered in bodies. The air was still dangerous, but it wasn't instantly fatal. I made it the rest of the way without incident. That alone would have been impossible months ago. This facility isn't empty. Not alive empty, but used. Old signs of people who tried to hold it. Reinforced doors. Marked air cycles. Careful planning. They either moved on or didn't make it. I don't know which. I won't pretend I don't think about that while I sleep. I've sealed myself into one of the deeper chambers. Fewer vents. Easier to control airflow. I rebuilt the radio using portable power and a hand crank tied to a flywheel. It's inefficient, but it works. The signal isn't strong, but it's steady. I don't know how many people are left now. If I had to guess, I'd say pockets. Thousands maybe. Tens of thousands if we're lucky. Spread thin. Underground. In cold zones. In high places where the air is harder to move through. Humanity isn't gone, but it's quiet. The world outside is changing in slow, uneven steps. The insects are collapsing in some regions, overcrowding, starvation, cannibal cycles that burn themselves out. In other places, they're still thick enough to black out the sun for days. This isn't a clean ending. It's messy, uneven, dangerous. I don't think the sky will ever go back to what it was. Even if the swarms thin out completely someday, the balance is broken. The climate is damaged. The ecosystems are gone or twisted into something new. But I also don't think this is total extinction anymore. I didn't believe I'd ever say that. Survival now isn't about waiting for rescue. There is no rescue. It's about learning the rules of this world and living inside them. Cold, sealed spaces, patience, observation, small communities that don't draw attention. Children raised knowing danger, but still taught how to care. I think about my sister less painfully now. Not because the loss hurts less, but because the world she died in is finally changing into something else. Something she never had a chance to see. That thought doesn't fix anything, but it lets me breathe easier. If you're listening to this and you're still alive, here's what I know for sure. The insects can be waited out in some places. Cold matters. Overpopulation weakens them. Silence and patience save lives. Moving only when necessary is safer than hiding forever. The sky lies sometimes. Watch patterns, not moments. Most importantly, don't build your life around the hope that everything will go back to normal. Build it around the idea that life continues, even when the world doesn't look the way it used to. I don't know how long I'll keep broadcasting. Maybe years, maybe weeks, maybe until this place fails too. But this won't be my last message unless I choose it to be. Silence now doesn't mean death. Sometimes it just means someone is living carefully. If this is the last thing you ever hear from me, then remember this. We didn't disappear quietly. We adapted. We endured. We changed. This is Ryan Carter, broadcasting from beneath a sky that no longer owns us completely. If you're out there, keep breathing.